Madonna has been absolutely wonderful with all these, or so they were telling anyway, but what a difference she makes. That she does have a wonderful way with people is that's the special, said no one saw it coming. The documents that sealed inside the royal archives, drafted during the final days of a 7-decade reign, when its contents finally surfaced at Clarence House. King Charles went quiet, not the quiet of a man at peace, the quiet of a man blindsided by something he cannot undo. Buried within Queen Elizabeth's final private instructions was a directive addressed to the woman he loves most, one that concerns every royal residence she thought was hers, the secret decree Queen Elizabeth left behind before she died. To understand what is happening inside the palace now, we need to go back to where it all began, not with Charles or Camilla, but with a letter. In February 2022, Queen Elizabeth II made a significant move. Just before her Platinum Jubilee marking 70 years on the throne, she issued a personal statement signed Elizabeth R. The statement was directed at the British people and the world, and she expressed her sincere wish that when Charles became king, Camilla would be called Queen Consort. Many saw this as a final graceful act of a queen supporting the woman her son loved, and in many ways it was. However, the statement was specific in ways that most people missed. It focused on Camilla title, public recognition, and ceremonial role, but did not address her access to the crown's most private spaces. This difference between public titles and private privileges is crucial to the current situation in the palace. Queen Elizabeth II not only left a public statement, but also private instructions. British monarchs have traditionally written private letters and memos to their successors covering topics such as managing crown property, handling family matters, and governing royal tradition. These are not rumors, they're part of how the monarchy has worked for centuries. Reports suggests that among these private instructions was a clause specifically about access to crown properties. This clause made a careful distinction between the access that hereditary family members have and that of those who marry into the family. This distinction matters greatly, especially now. In June 2026, Buckingham Palace released its annual sovereign grant report. Hidden within the financial details was important news. King Charles and Queen Camilla announced they would not move into Buckingham Palace even after its £369 million renovation. This means the official London residence occupied by every monarch and Queen Victoria in 1837 will not be Camilla home. The official reason given was respectful and calm. Charles has huge affection for Buckingham Palace, which will still serve as the monarchy ceremonial headquarters with increased public access. But if we look closely, we see a significant point. After spending £369 million on renovations, the King and Queen are choosing to stay at Clarence House. Now we must ask, why does this decision feel permanent? Sources close to the palace claim that the June 2026 announcement was not just about Charles's comfort. Clarence House is well known. It was also influenced by rules believed to be in the late Queen's private instructions about access to crown properties. If this is true, the decision about Buckingham Palace is not just about one residence. It could have fact many other properties. These include Windsor Castle, Balmoral, Sandringham, and Holyrood House. Each property has its own history and protocols and may also be governed by the same careful distinctions that Queen Elizabeth set before she passed away. This story does not end with a decision about a residence. It starts there. To understand why these rules exist and how they may have been written, we must recognize something that has not been fully acknowledged in official versions of the story. The relationship between Queen Elizabeth and Camilla was not as simple as public statements made it seem, not even close. Why the Queen never truly welcomed Camilla into palace life. There is one fact about Charles and Camilla wedding that the royal fan Lee has not fully explained. Queen Elizabeth II did not attend the civil ceremony on April 9, 2005. Charles and Camilla entered the Windsor Guildhall for their wedding. They were surrounded by family and friends and the April sunlight, making it a happy occasion. However, the Queen was not present in the Guildhall. She attended the blessing at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle and hosted the reception, where she smiled, toasted the couple, and publicly gave her blessing, but she was not at the Guildhall, and this detail tells us something important about her relationship with the woman who became Queen Camilla. Royal biographer Andrew Martin, who revealed realities of the royal family through Princess Diana, has spoken about the tension between Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles over Camilla. He noted significant animosity, especially before and after Diana's death. Animosity as a strong word. It indicates a serious conflict, not just awkwardness. To understand this, we need to consider what the late Queen experienced and what she needed to protect. Queen Elizabeth II married Prince Philip in 1947. She spent over 70 years building a monarchy based on the trust and affection of the British people. She knew that the monarchy was a relationship between the crown and the public, which required careful attention. Diana changed that relationship forever when she became Charles's wife. In 1981, she made the royal family seem warm and approachable, which was new for the institution. Millions loved her and hundreds of millions followed her story. When her marriage to Charles fell apart and the news of his affair came out, it hurt the public's trust. Queen Elizabeth saw her son's marriage crumble and felt the nation's sorrow, and Diana died in August 1997. She comforted her grandsons William and Harry while also managing the public image of the crown. During this time, Camilla was quietly in Charles's life, waiting for things to change. Over time, the Queen accepted the situation. She was not vengeful, but practical. She expressed her wish that Ellaby called Queen Consort in her Platinum Jubilee statement in February 2022. There were two sides to this message. Publicly, it showed genuine warmth and kindness. However, those close to the late Queen suggested that she privately acknowledged the damage caused to the monarchy and wanted to prevent it from happening again. In 2020, Queen Elizabeth left Windsor Castle and did not return to Buckingham Palace. She died at Balmoral, where she spent her summers away from the public. These were her private spaces where she was just herself, not a queen. The palace is still handling her final instructions regarding these spaces. The details about these instructions are more specific than people realize. You're shaking up foundations that many thought were settled. The royal residence, as Camilla has been quietly locked out of many royal stories. Overlook an important fact: British royal residences are not all the same. They operate under different rules and are not equally accessible to every royal family member. A common mistake is to treat Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral, and Sandringham as the same. They are not just the monarch's grand homes that can be used however the monarch likes. The truth is more complex and significant. Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle are owned by the Crown, meaning they don't personally belong to the monarch. They belong to the Crown Estate, an institution that has existed for, centuries. A long history of legal and traditional guidelines decides the management and rules for these properties. Balmoral and Sandringham are different. These two estates are privately owned by the monarch and passed down from one sovereign to the next, separate from the Crown Estate. They are the most personal properties for the royal family. The late Queen had special authority over Balmoral and Sandringham that she did not have over the Crown properties. Her wishes for these estates were more significant and personal. Let's look closely at Balmoral. It is a 50,000-acre estate in the Scottish Highlands located in the Cairngorms National Park. Queen Elizabeth II spent about 3 months there each summer. She loved it, rode horses in the mornings, walked the hills, and hosted her family there. She also passed away there in September 2022. Per call is a property, the Balmoral estate, that Charles and Camilla have used as their Highland retreat. It feels familiar and personal to them. However, all is not the same as Balmoral Castle. The late Queen tightly controlled some areas of the estate. Sources close to the palace reveal that the late Queen's private instructions included specific rules about Camilla access to certain areas within these privately owned properties. These rules are not hostile but careful. The term conditional has been used. Camilla, as access is different from Charles because she married into the royal family and does not share the same bloodline. Now consider the June 2026 announcement about Buckingham Palace. Charles' decision to stay at Clarence House was presented as a final choice. He really does have a fondness for Clarence House, which he has lived in since 2003. Even the late Queen viewed Buckingham Palace mainly as the office. Most royalty haven't enjoyed living there much. However, when you compare this announcement with the late Queen's private instructions, a different picture appears. It's not just a matter of Charles like King Clarence House. They could also mean that Clarence House is the one London residence where those rules about access do not apply as strongly. It's the place where Charles and Camilla built their life together. By choosing to stay at Clarence House and announcing it publicly, the palace could reveal more about the impact of those private rules than it has openly shared. Take your time to understand the details of that June 2026 announcement. Think about what it really means. How King Charles is privately crumbling under the pressure. When you watch King Charles in public, he seems composed, steady, and practiced. He shakes hands precisely, listens carefully, and speaks easily, showing he has spent nearly 8 decades preparing for these moments. However, those who follow the royal family closely have noticed something different in recent months. There seems to be a heaviness about him. It's not dramatic or obvious, but it is real. It's important to understand who King Charles is beyond his composed exterior. Biographers have documented Charles' deep emotional sensitivity. This sensitivity showed in his childhood during his the edge and in his commitment to environmental issues, architecture, and youth employment. Charles feels things deeply. He carries the weight of his responsibilities with an intensity that his public image doesn't show. He has, by his own words, sacrificed his public standing and reputation because of his love for Camilla. He chose her repeatedly and during comparisons to Diana and public hostility over many years. Through all the challenges, Camilla has been his constant support, the one person who truly understands him. Now reports indicate that the woman his mother endorsed publicly, the woman he married, is dealing with instructions left by his mother. These instructions were meant to protect, not harm. Queen Elizabeth left these provisions because after 70 years as monarch, she believed the institution of the crown was more important than any individual, including herself. She even gave up her beloved home, Clarence House, as required of her. These provisions regarding Camilla access to royal spaces come from the same logic. They reflect what the institution of the crown needs, rather than being personal against Camilla. Charles understands this, making his situation difficult. He cannot ignore his mother's instructions without risking something greater, as doing so could undermine the institution's authority. He has often spoken about his love and respect for his mother and what her legacy means to him. As a result, he does what he has always done. When the weight of the crown feels heavy, he manages it quietly and without drama, enduring the struggle that the royal family has faced for generations. Those close to him say he is coping, but they also acknowledge the high cost. Princess Diana's legacy still controls what Camilla can do. There is a moment that royal watchers continue to discuss. It happened at Westminster Abbey, and May 2023. During the coronation, King Charles and Queen Camilla walked from the thrones to the exit. The congregation, made up of people from around the world, showed respect to the new king. They bowed and curtsied to Charles. However, when Camilla passed by, there was silence. It wasn't hostility or a dramatic gesture. It was the quiet of many people. Unsure how to feel, royal biographer Tom Bauer noted, this moment it matters because it highlights something Charles and Camilla cannot control or change. Princess Diana's presence is still felt. Diana died in August 1997 at the age of 36. Still, the way the world reacted to her death and how those feelings continue means she is often part of discussions about the British royal family, even more so than many who are alive today. Diana is featured in a popular Netflix series and appears in yearly tributes, documentaries, and new books. She is evident in the faces of her sons William and Harry and influences how many people across generations react to Camilla. This isn't about guilt or fairness, it's about public perception and lasting impact. The story of the Wales marriage, its downfall, personal toll, the affair's exposure, and public sides taken has left a mark that hasn't fully faded. It continues to show up in books, documentaries, polls, and anniversaries each time Camilla appears in a way that invites comparison. It feels like a fresh wound. Queen Elizabeth II understood this well. She spent her reign managing the public's view of the royal family. She was aware that Camilla carried a significant weight in this view and acted carefully. Her public support for Camilla during her Platinum Jubilee was genuine but also strategic. She aimed to heal a wound that had been open for decades, yet this action could not erase the reasons behind the late Queen's cautious approach to Camilla's role in the royal family. This cautiousness was not personal, it was about the royal institution. Traditionally, royal protocol distinguishes between those born into the family and those who marry, and this distinction influences how the royal family operates behind the scenes. Camilla came with her own history, one that many in the British public still remember. For the late Queen, recognizing this history mattered. For how Camilla fit into the royal family's more private matters, the plans she reportedly left for Camilla align with her careful approach to managing sensitive issues throughout her reign. The stillness during the coronation in Westminster Abbey was not an accident, it was a meaningful observation. The late Queen would have recognized it right away and quietly noted it without comment. The crown's future hangs on what happens in the next months. No one inside the palace is asking this important question out loud: what happens next? The decree as in place, confirming that Charles and Camilla will not move to Buckingham Palace. No changes are happening behind closed doors. The royal household is carefully discussing the late Queen's private instructions and how they affect existing laws concerning crown property, such as Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and the Palace of Holyrood House. This situation as a significant constitutional issues. The sovereign grant, which funds the monarchy's activities, is linked to these properties, raising real questions about how the late Queen's wishes align with current crown property law. It is not simply about one person's desires versus and others. It involves balancing years of royal traditions with today's rules, requiring the careful legal analysis the palace's advisors are conducting. At the same time, the person or stakes are high. Camilla is 77. After nearly 20 years as a dedicated member of the royal family, she has built a quiet but respected role. She has supported important causes and carried out her duties with professionalism. Covering that the institution she serves has special provisions concerning her access to private areas is a significant and challenging realization for William and Catherine, who will inherit everything Charles now holds. How the situation is resolved will set an important precedent for their future reigns. William has a complex history. He was just a lad, and when his parents' marriage fell apart and 12 when his mother passed away, he has handled his relationship with his stepmother carefully, but he is serious about the monarchy. He has learned from watching how his father manages royal challenges. William understands a vital truth: the crown is not the same as a family. The family exists within the crown, and its logic does not always align with family feelings. What the palace decides next will be telling, whether it finds a way to honor the late Queen's wishes while respecting Camilla's dignity or manages the situation using its typical careful approach will reveal much about the monarchy under Charles. The third Queen Elizabeth II spent 70 years and straining a monarchy devoted to its institution. Her son is trying to honor that legacy while also following his heart. The key question is whether the focus on the institution and personal loyalty can coexist in this tricky situation. History shows that the royal family has survived crises greater than this, but will they do so without sacrifice? That uncertainty keeps those closest to King Charles on high alert and waiting. The palace won't discuss this openly, as it never does, yet the silence speaks volumes. Charles committed everything to Camilla. His mother gave her public blessing and her private terms. What those terms mean for their marriage, family, and the crown will unfold over time.